Good morning, everyone. I'm Phil Murray, Business Support Manager at the Northern Ireland Chamber. You're all very welcome to the first Grow Internationally with Danske Bank event as part of our Learn, Grow, Excel programme. We have a terrific event lined up for you today with the company in focus, Denman, which is part of the Denroy Group. We are delighted to be joined by Kevin McNamee, Group CEO, and Francis Courtney, Global Marketing Manager for Denroy Group. You're both very welcome today. Kevin and Francis will be interviewed by Jamie Delargy, and he'll be getting to the bottom of how Denman has grown its brand globally using brand ambassadors, influencers, distributors, and digital analytics. These are now all relevant aspects for businesses to consider when growing their businesses internationally, and hopefully there will be useful tools and insights that you can apply to your own business. I would like to thank the support of Danske Bank, our partner in Grow Internationally, which enables NI Chamber to facilitate events like this. Events that give you the opportunity to access leading business people, listen to how they've grown their businesses in international markets, and obtain advice in all aspects of commercial development through export. I would like to welcome Julie Skelly, Head of Belfast Business Centre at Danske Bank, and we will have the opportunity to hear from Julie shortly. I would like to thank the support of our SME partner, PowerNI, who is represented today by Neil McConkey, Key Account Manager. Neil, you are very welcome. And a thank you to Jamie Delargy, who will be interviewing Kevin and Francis today. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to note two things. One, please submit any questions that you have for Kevin and Francis using the Q&A function on Zoom throughout the event. And two, please complete the feedback survey on Zoom as you log off. Feedback is important to us as it drives the direction of our content and speakers for these events. I hope that you find the event useful to your business, and I will now hand over to Julie to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phil. And we are delighted to be in the 10th year of our partnership with NI Chamber, and equally pleased to be involved in the development of this programme and the rollout of what will now be Grow Internationally with Danske Bank. We are post-Brexit and negotiating the new Northern Ireland Protocol. So it is important to us as a local bank that we can provide access to and opportunities for local businesses to learn from successful exporters as we help Northern Ireland grow again. These companies will share their international growth story to encourage local businesses to grow their own export activity. As Phil said, today's customer focus is on Bangor-based manufacturer Denman, which is part of the Denroy Group, and we are proud to say that they are a long-established customer of ours. Denroy's background is fascinating and a real local success story. There is probably so much that they could talk about and take us through today, and I know they're going to focus on how they've grown their business internationally through a strong global brand campaign and the incredibly successful employment of leading brand ambassadors and influencers. We really hope this session gives all today's attendees some valuable ideas and takeaways to help you with your own international growth story. I will now hand it over to Jamie to get the event started. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Julie, and indeed, thank you very much, Phil. I would like to welcome our two guest speakers from the Denroy Group, Kevin McNamee, Group CEO, and Francis Courtney, Global Marketing Manager. Kevin is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Ireland and joined Denroy Group in 1997 as financial accountant. He left the group in 1999 to join Kingspan plc, where he was finance director in several of the group's divisions over the following 15 years. Kevin then rejoined Denroy in 2014, taking on the role of Group Finance Director. He was appointed Group CEO in 2019. Francis is a member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing and studied Management and Marketing at the University of West London. In 2006, she joined Subway Northern Ireland, in due course becoming Island of Ireland Marketing Manager. Francis joined Denman in July 2019 as Global Marketing Manager and was promoted to Group Marketing Manager of the Denroy Group at the beginning of this year. Now, while we're going to touch on the wider Denroy Group, our main focus today, as you've heard, is on its subsidiary, Denman International, the hair care business. Before we start the interview, here's a short video to give you a flavour of what Denman is all about. some reason, I feel somewhat unqualified to talk about the hair care business. I'm not sure why that's the case, but hairbrushes and I have been strangers for some decades. But do you know what? The principles behind this are pretty much the same, whatever industry you look at where you're talking about marketing. And I do have 2 daughters and a wife who endlessly talk about hair care. But look, let's get right into it. And I want to start with Kevin and put some little context around what we're going to talk about today. The Denroy Group makes products for different sectors, including aerospace, automotive, medical devices, and Denman, of course. How did the group become diversified, and was that a strategic decision?
Yeah, we get asked that regularly. What's going on in that business? You make hairbrushes and bits for the aircraft industry. You know, why are you so diverse? Well, the core competence of the group goes back to injection moulding. And in fact, we've been injection molders right back to the 1960s. Something that probably a lot of people don't know is the original business was actually Billy Martin, as of Brett Martin and Max Rainey, who became, chief executive and chairman of the Denroy Group. They were originally in business in the 1960s as designers, engineers, and injection molders. Then the Denroy Group was founded in 1972 by Max and his son John, who's still our chairman. And the focus has always been on that competence around plastic injection moulding. So when you walk into the factory, you'll see machines running, with 40 machines there, and they will be making hairbrushes in one machine and perhaps parts for Airbus or Bombardier or perhaps Boeing even on the next machines in line. And that's the core competence in what we've stuck to. In saying that, Denman has become a business in its own right over the decades, and a brand established on its own. Was it strategic? Well, yes, it was. It's always been an ambition of the group to be diversified in many markets. And in fact, we experienced that issue during the pandemic, of course, where you can imagine volumes of aerospace components fell through the floor. We had, a very significant contraction, but that was balanced with the surge in Denman that we're going to chat a little bit about today, and other markets as well. So yes, it has been a deliberate strategy of the business to remain diversified across a number of sectors for that reason of having insulation against maybe macro shocks or something. But all comes back really to that core competence that I talk about of engineering and plastic injection moulding.
Francis, the Denman brand is 85 years old and its products are sold all over the world. What attributes of the brand would you say are the secrets to its success?
Yeah, it's a fascinating brand. We joke it's probably one of Northern Ireland's best kept secrets, the brand that it is from here. And it actually started with an entrepreneur in 1938, John Denman Dean, and he actually went to America and he discovered this new amazing material called nylon. And when he came back with it in his suitcase after the war, his sister had really unruly hair, and he found that he was able to make a hairbrush out of this nylon material, and that's where the brand was born. We were really lucky that Fidel Sassoon actually picked it up, and nylon had this really unique property where the first handheld hairdryers were in production, but no other brushes could withstand the heat of the hairdryer and be used in the hair. And lo and behold, nylon could, and there became the brand being born into the heart of the professional. And then it's really grown from there, where the professional endorsement has gone forward. But really, it was the Rainey family taking it over in the 70s have nurtured the brand, and they have really lived by family values behind the brand, and that has been the core key focus on everything that we do within the brand, and it's really grown. And the team that is there in place today that has grown and Kevin has brought forward has been able to push the brand to reach global success.
Well, you've mentioned there the origins within the professional hair care business, but of course that's extended very successfully to consumers. So what has been the strategy to if you like, capitalise on the success within the professional area of the business, and then use that to develop a consumer base?
Our strategy is to keep the professional at the core heart of the brand, and everything we do has a professional focus on it. We are a professional product that we have, and we listen to the professionals. We also like to work with the professionals, and the heart of that being that we have the R&D and the manufacturer in Northern Ireland, so we can ensure the quality, but we can also really where it started with being a problem solver. So it originally solved the problem of a sister having unruly hair. Now we listen to the professional market. What problems do they have? How can we solve them within our own team and manufacturing process? And then we bring that expertise from the professional market into the consumer market, and we're able to do a 360 approach to the brand and how we answer. But really, we are problem solvers.
Well, Kevin, you've talked in the past about Denman being on a digital journey. And can you give me an overview of what that means in terms of your business operations? Briefly, if you will, because we'll be coming back to this issue of digitalization in more detail later on.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not a new concept. You know, I think any manufacturer who has a consumer product or potentially a B2C product is probably looking at this, or certainly should be. What we're describing here is where we've moved from a traditional wholesale type distribution model, selling through professional wholesalers or even through large high street retailers and so on, moving to a position where we can sell directly to the consumer, and that's either through our own digital platforms or through selected partners, the likes of Amazon and so on, but not exclusively, but there are others. But to do that, it creates a huge advantage that you're communicating directly with the consumer, and that's something I think that all brands that have that opportunity to do, to connect directly with their end customer and have that engagement should really look to do. But look, it's not a new model. There's a lot of, it's a well-beaten path with big companies like Nike and so on have done this to take out really those intermediaries and establish that relationship directly with the consumer, and through digital trading, which was never possible before. You know, the traditional business model was your wholesaler had the customer or their customer's customer had the customer, but that was the route that you had to go through several chains. We're really in the modern digital trading era, it's not strictly necessary. If you can access that customer directly through digital means, do so.
Well, we're on the subject of distribution, and of course you're selling in different countries now. There is obviously a decision on your part as to which countries to target. Now, do you have a checklist with parameters that must be met before you decide whether to approach or access a country?
Yeah, a lot of it is fairly common sense stuff, but it's really the size of the market in terms of population, the affluence of that market. We joke internally, it's something I picked up from an economist, the Big Mac index. What's the price of a Big Mac in a market? It can be a barometer of the affluence of that market, or at least an element of it, because we have substantial market presence in the likes of India. But of course, the Indian market, whilst it's vast, of a population of over 1 billion, only an element will probably buy a Denman hairbrush at the price point. But that element is still quite large. It's still larger than the UK market, for example. So we would segment an international market, such as India is a good example, or China is another emerging market like that, of course, or fast emerging, and look at that and say, right, what is the affluence? And then secondly, I suppose, what is the recognition already there for the brand? Now, we're fortunate that Francis has picked up a business that's been trading for decades and has established distributors and established presence. And as Francis was alluding to, we are very much embedded in the professional market, which means that we already have a dialogue, have a presence, a brand presence within the professional hairdressing and barbering industry in a lot of these markets through wholesalers. So that gives us recognition even with consumers, because of course consumers get their hair cut, they're seeing the professionals use these tools. So we're looking as well at the markets where we already have a professional presence. And what we're doing when we're growing markets in a particular geographic region, the first channel we look at is our existing professional channel, to look at our existing partner there to say, okay, we want to move the business from just a professional only wholesale type business to a more consumer facing business. Would you like to partner with us, or do they have the capability to partner with us and the desire? So that's always our first channel to look as well at, to see what the presence we have there, is it capable of being expanded? If it's not, then we'll look at other routes to do that. But I say we're fortunate that we do have that professional route that's been in place for decades now.
Yeah, and as well as, of course, using the professionals, if that's the right term, you're obviously employing the various digital tools, and that's what I want to focus on now in more detail, the digital platforms, the data analytics, and the social media. How do you use those those tools to expand your reach into the consumer market, Francis?
So we have really how the marketing has changed, I suppose, is that initially you would have we had a demand funnel. So it was, awareness, and then people considered the brand, and then they made a purchase and built loyalty, and that was very easy. But the marketing funnel now is a full funnel, and there's so many touch points within how people shop now. So even before, so pre-purchase, when someone's not even considering what they want your brand or that they need it, you have to be able to have contact with that person there to make them consider, and then to jump them to the next stage of where they start to browse. And really, retail has moved from a high street to a digital street, but that means they have it's so much easier. And then evaluation of your product even before they start to purchase. Once they've purchased, then it's not goodbye anymore. There's a post-purchase engagement that is really important that goes through, and it's all omni-channel work that we're doing. So it's every touch point that we can, and how do you connect with the consumer on each of those touch points and get them to come back to your brand, and how are you relatable to those people within the brand that they're looking to shop for and purchase.
Now, as you embark, Kevin, on this digital journey, have embarked on it, you've been learning and that obviously, I presume, influences how you do business globally. Can you give me an idea of how, if you like, an experience that you've had in driving that, these digital tools has helped you maybe redirect the business in other areas of Denroy?
Yeah, well, certainly the journey when we started on it was largely new. We did have a website for years, and which traded away at a fairly low level, but really what we've done is accelerated that, and the pandemic has assisted that, I must admit, with the move to online shopping. But what we've been able to do is bring in the capability either internally or partnering with experts in this whole digital marketing arena to assist us in that journey. And certainly we've learned a huge amount and come a long way in a relatively short space of time, certainly less than 2 years, because it's a complex area, and getting what the tech guys call your stack right, even, which is your digital online offering, is absolutely key. For example, our website a previous website a few years ago was very much sort of PC focused, whereas 80% of shopping is now on smartphones. And they talk about simple things like, you've got 4 inches by 2 inches on a smartphone. They call that the real estate. All this jargon you pick up is fascinating, but they call that the real estate. And you know how irritating it is if you go on a website on your smartphone to buy something, and the buy it now button's way over to the right, and you're having to size it. That just irritates a consumer, and they drop out. So learning all about that, of how to actually get your stack right, and then of course getting your payment gateways all sorted out as well. There's a lot to be done there to make sure, frankly, once you get the consumer on your website, it's so simple for them to do, I want that, click buy. It really has to be that simple. So we've learned a lot around that, and then the whole, as Francis was touching on there, the digital marketing piece. So if that's all very well, having this very slick buy it now, app or whatever, on your website, but how does the consumer know to go there? That's the trick. It's basic, simple marketing, I suppose. It's the pure essentials of marketing, but it's different tools. And again, we've been learning, and we're finding actually. Young people get it. We have a couple of grads who have come into the business around Francis's team and the sales team, and they just really get it. They seem to have an affinity with this technology more than I have, and they just simply can adapt to it and seem to pick up the tools very quickly. So what we've got, I suppose, now, we've got a blend of a bit of grey hair and experience, sort of strategically, if you like. Francis has a huge experience from that whole consumer background as well, more in sort of traditional marketing, with Subway and so on. And then we bring in either these external experts in the digital arena, or feed this young talent, frankly, is what we're finding as well, who just really get this technology, and that is working well for us. And you're right, we are looking at now jumping that to other platforms, Denroy, but Denroy is more of a B2B business, and it's not quite the same. Do Airbus want to go on an app and buy a product? No, they don't. They just want to nearly fax you an order. It's old technology. Well, not quite, but it's a different space. It's not quite relevant for B2B, but for B2C, this is where you should be.
Now, I would, yes, access websites and using the apps on the mobile phone, but I probably would tend to buy using the laptop. But is that the experience of younger people? And give me some numbers here to about how people are buying? Maybe Francis, I should put that.
Hand over to the expert. Yeah.
Believe it or not, it's 80-20. So 80% of our purchases are done through a mobile phone.
My goodness.
Yeah.
80%.
Yeah.
Oof. And how would that have changed over recent years? I mean, that's obviously gone up from zero a few years ago. But what how rapid has been that transformation, that shift from to mobile?
The feedback and research and data, everything has said that thanks to COVID, anything to do with online or social or digital technology, it's actually COVID has nearly pushed things 10 years in advance of where it should be. As Kevin said, because our original website it was a very small part of the business, so we don't have strong stats to be able to compare back and forward. But definitely, it's so much larger than what we had even planned for when we were building the brand. So the thing with the digital is you get an awful lot of data back, and you're learning constantly every day, and it's not how you think it's going to be. There's always changes that put something in that you reconsider, and you have to be able. It's so fast moving, and as Kevin said, it's so important to have the right team behind you that's able to adapt and function within that ever-changing world.
Let's talk about the people who are assisting you in marketing the brand. And I'm talking here about the bloggers and the influencers and the role they play. Now, first of all, how do you identify them? And then how do you decide which ones you're going to work with and which ones don't fit with the brand or wouldn't be the best fit? Yes.
Kevin gave us a really strong party line, which is actually really easy to work to, and is it adding value? So that is the first consideration we make for anything that we're doing. Is this person going to add value to our brand? They also have to believe in our brand, and it has to be authentic and as organic as possible. So there are influencers and bloggers out there who have millions of followers and are paid for, but we see those through experience. We have treated them more as like buying an advertisement on television, and that's how the consumer has, from our experience, has started to look at them as well. So what we do is they have to have a genuine love of the brand. So now we don't tend to pay for influencers or consumers. What we will do is we will give them product. And we literally have a team of, there's two on it that nearly work on it full time, where they're constantly scrolling through the websites, review sites, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and they're identifying people that we want to talk to who are either using our product or they have a problem that we think our brush could solve. So therefore we'll go to them and say, you're doing this, have you tried this? What do you think? Now that can be, that's a brave thing to do, but we have such a belief in the product that we know. Now you're not going to get 100% positive reviews from everything, because that's just, it's not the way the world works. But because we know that we've got a great product, we've got the belief in ourselves to be able to go out there, and that's how we work with influencers and bloggers. But it's really it's time consuming. So my advice to anyone would be, it's a balance. So you're either going to, do you have the time to invest in that, or do you have some money that you can get someone else? So are you going to use an agency or another digital specialist to come in and help you, assist you with that in your setup?
Is it can I put this question to Kevin, is it cheaper, given that you're handing out product rather than, say, paying or influencer bloggers? Is it a cheaper marketing strategy?
Yeah, I'd say it is. Traditional advertising, you take out, an A4 page in a trade magazine or something, could be what, 20, 30, 40,000 pounds, and you don't know what return you're getting. The brilliant thing, I think we're going to touch on this perhaps on a chat about analytics, but the brilliant thing about digital marketing is you get an immediate response. If we run digital content or something, or a YouTube video, you can nearly watch your online sales like a dashboard. It's like nearly watching the speedometer in your car or something. We can quite often correlate an uplift in online sales activity directly to a blogger or an influencer's post or TikTok post or something like that, and you can sit back and watch. So it's it was always that adage, 50% of marketing money's wasted. Which 50%? That old one. But you can be much more targeted because, as Francis says, we have, for example, paid high-profile bloggers to promote the brand and get nothing. You watch it online and just flatlined, nothing happens. And because I think the consumer sees through it, as Francis has said, the consumer sees through it and says that's an advert, and then they don't buy into it. Whereas if you can get them to believe that it's real endorsement, which it is, what we do is real. We hand out product to people, but then they can say what they like, but they generally say nice things about the product, and then people believe it and the consumer will buy it, and we can track the stats because we can see the activity on our various e-com platforms and see the return on investment.
Well, a lot of people, Francis, will look at, myself included, but a lot of people will look at what ratings the products are achieving on platforms like Trustpilot. Now, do you use Trustpilot?
So initially when we launched our website, we did go with Trustpilot, but we have just recently moved away from Trustpilot to, there's an awful lot of review sites out there, but we've moved to reviews.io, and that has come from, I have to say, when we did it, I was quite naive in installing Trustpilot because I didn't look into it enough to make sure it worked for me. I took the advice of the onboarding person from Trustpilot and it worked well, but I didn't actually take a step back and sit and look at it and go, how is this working for our brand and our brand needs, and is it meeting the needs that we have? It actually, we've recently employed a customer services manager, and it was only they came knocking at my door saying, why are you doing this? Why are you letting it do that? And it was whenever he then went to market and brought back various suggestions. And one of the big things for us was Trustpilot reviews, it reviews everything in a oneer. So we received a few negative reviews, 1-star reviews during the COVID crisis. But whenever you looked into it, it was actually based on delivery. And we did have some problems with delivery during COVID, just with suppliers. And I think the whole industry experienced that. But with reviews.io, they actually break the review down. So even if you aren't happy with the delivery, you say that, but then you give the product a rating. So we're able to push our product rating and say, this is a fantastic brush. And then also what we're able to do then is answer the question about delivery and apologise and say, sorry, delivery wasn't up to par, and here's how we've solved it or given you. So it's able to break it down that way. So it's really important that whatever review service you use, that you make it work for you rather than just falling into what I let myself do, just be led by them. And also the thing is, the customer doesn't care that it's come from Trustpilot or reviews or FIFO. What they care about is the genuine review from, if you give a review, it's come from you. So they're not really looking at who it's come from. They're looking at what has that person said about my product.
Do I understand you correctly? Sorry. Did you sculpt the questions that are on the review platform?
Yeah, we've manipulated the form of how we want to ask.
And they're good with that, are they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are they all flexible? Like you say, well, like, this doesn't really work for my product. The template doesn't really work here.
I didn't have the flexibility. We didn't think we had as much flexibility with Trustpilot. And the other thing with Trustpilot is that they do not authenticate that it's a genuine purchase. So sometimes you can get the odd review which you feel is a bit unfair, that it's not a true representation, but just the way their model works. But then again, they have a huge reach and they're so well known. So there's pros and cons to every app, every platform that you use. You just have to make sure whatever way. And as you said when we were chatting earlier, actually, reviews sometimes. The customer services managers come back to us again now and challenged and said, actually, what are you doing to reward these customers that are now giving us these great reviews, because time is precious in modern society, and for someone to take time out to actually review your product and to give genuine feedback, so that's something that we're looking to improve and build upon. So do we give them percentage off the next time they buy, but even just making sure at the very least we recognise that they've given us a review, we say thank you and it comes from us, but that again is built back into the values of the business and how we operate as a business overall.
You've answered another question I was going to put, which was you get back to these people. I mean, whether it's a negative or a positive, you get back to them with a response. But Kevin, sorry, you were going to say something.
No, it was just a general point. I was going to come in just to follow up on something that Francis touched on. There's two things. If you're going to go B2C, there's two things. First of all, you need a really good system for managing the orders and pick, pack and ship. Now that sounds fairly straightforward, but you do need to be very slick because the consumer will expect that on their doorstep in 48 hours, let's say 24 hours maybe. So you have to have a very rapid turnaround, and you think about resource and picking and auto bagging, and there's all sorts of the practicalities. But the other thing which we learned as well was, I'd say Francis touched on it, customer services. We have a dedicated customer services manager now. That's a 40-hour-a-week operation, and we're looking now at running that really 24/7 because consumers, if they put a question on, we get a lot of how-tos or what brush type questions mostly, isn't it? What brush do I need for my hair type? They expect a response, and if our customer services manager isn't in the Monday morning, and things come in on a Friday night, so that's the next stage as well. And we're going to have because we are a global business, we're selling these products all around the world. And the next stage to have a global 24/7 customer services team. So it's quite an investment, but that's the way we're going.
You presumably, I'm sorry, I'm saying you obviously have, but in truth, I'm presuming that this is the case, that you could be deluged with stats, relevant stats. Now, how do you sift through them to get the information you want? Or is it easy, or is it difficult? I mean, is it produced in a user-friendly way? What is the crack with that?
Yeah, we can take that. We have partners, for example, Shopify we use for our e-com business, our own e-com business, and you can simply download the information. We have our own internal system. Obviously, we can monitor what's being sold on what platform, but they provide a very good breakdown of by product, by region. All the information you'd want, and there's dashboards there. In fact, it's quite addictive. Generally, in France, and I sit with them open. Watching them from time to time during the day to see the sales activity, because you can monitor it by hour and by region and do all sorts of clever stuff. So if, for example, you ran an ad campaign targeted on London commuters or something, you could watch sales in London. You can do that sort of thing. But even other platforms like Amazon, if you're running, there's different ways you can operate in Amazon. Between Vendor Central and so on, Seller Central. But if you're on Seller Central, you get access to the stats. So it's the same thing. You can get all of that information as to what's selling where and watch it live time, basically dashboard type stuff. But yeah, and we do manage data. Of course, we have everybody in the sales and commercial team now has got fairly adept at analysing Excel data and using pivot tables and all sorts of analysis like that as well, just to look at that.
And do you Francis has referred to sort of the experts, if you like, but do you always have to hire in these people and make them members of staff, or can you buy in the talent for a period of time? That's
an interesting thing. You don't want to be paying services forever, do you? Generally in a business. So we're looking now. Amazon's quite complex to get set up on properly, and in the early stages we engaged external, experts, I suppose, to do that and paid them commission and so on and sales. What we're doing now is attempting to move to internalise that, to get the skills embedded in the business, because it is complex and technical. But we're getting there to the point, of course, that we won't have to perhaps pay, constantly for services for somebody to do that, and likewise on the other platforms. So we've come a long way. Look, this is a journey. We're by no means the experts or anywhere near the end of this journey, but we thought we'd just share our experiences, being, say, a few years into it now, and we're learning more all the time, and we're finding ourselves, I think it's fair to say, less and less dependent on the experts. We're building our knowledge on the full e-com platform, if you like, really every day. And every day is a learning day because it changes.
Well, the whole point of this exercise is that people learn. So can I ask you, start with you, Francis, then maybe pick up with Kevin. What advice would you give to someone who's pretty much starting out on this digital pathway and isn't really quite sure, they're there's just it just seems like so bewildering, the choices. What would you advise them to do? You know, a sort of not a complete checklist, but one or two things that you think they should really look at first.
I think make sure that they've got their house in order before they put their head above.
What do you mean by
carpet.
that? Sorry.
So our sales team are very strong. Our pick, pack and ship, our IT, our accounts. We so when I know whenever I go out to market something that it's going to be delivered. The brush is there. You know, we've got the support, we've got the analytics, we've got the IT. The accounts are able to process it. So I would make sure that is a really that you've got your house in order from that side before you go, because it's a fast world once you put your head up there. And because it's digital and it's now and it's happening, it's very unforgiving if you get it wrong. So don't make sure you don't give anyone an opportunity to get it wrong with something that's in house first. And then as Kevin's, I think the clearest thing from us is to have a clear vision, and really that does it add value has been the best thing to be able to work towards. So even when we're working with an influencer, for example, and they haven't driven any sales out of it, one influencer, our Instagram account jumped from an additional 4,000 followers. So although we didn't get any sales of the product, that person opened up a new market to us, and we were able to talk to people who we weren't originally talking to. So that would be my two main tips. And also to don't be afraid to look out, and there are experts out there, and as Kevin said, you can bring them in for a short period of time, and it's really, again, it's time versus money. Do you have the time to do everything? You know, for example, Kevin mentioned the stack behind it. That's a daunting process, getting that right. Or do you invest with the experts who know how to do it on a daily basis, are at the forefront of the technology and know the systems? So therefore, but you pay for expert advice, but then it's balanced of how long would it take you to learn what they already know and what they're offering. So that would be my advice.
And Kevin, I want you to address the same sort of issue about the things, the takeaways you'd like people to draw from this, but in particular, you know, I'm conscious when Francis was talking about the different sections or sectors in the business that you have to get right, that somebody's saying, like, I'm just a small way of going, you know, I really don't have the resources, the skills, the team to get into this. It's all very sophisticated. Can you be too small to get involved in the digitalization business?
I don't think so. You know, I think people run e-com businesses from their garage. You look where Amazon started. You know, there's the classic example, isn't it? You know, started in a basement. Yeah. So no, I think anybody can do it, and you'll not be able to do it all. And we can't. You know, we have a sizable team, but we can't do it all. And we do engage experts. And there's a point that our technical capability runs out, and you hand it over. And there's a number of really good companies. Even in Belfast, there's a number of absolutely super digital support companies there. Of course, there's a bit of a hub here now, as you know, which is ideal. So if my advice to somebody is find the right partner with them, get your stack right, as Francis says, get your systems right, and then think about your message. It won't be for everybody, as we said before, you know, it's probably not for B2B, but if you've got a consumer product, you really, in my mind now, you have to be thinking about your route to market. And to me, I talk a lot, Francis will attest to this, a lot about margin maximization. You know, what's the best route to get our brush to a consumer? Ideally, what you want to do with any consumer product is sell it direct to the consumer, because then you're not paying somebody in the middle to take a margin to handle it for you, because, and it's something Francis talked a lot about as well, there is the value add. Really, you have to have a look at, well, if I am going to sell through that person in the middle, wholesaler or distributor, whatever they are, what are they actually adding? You know, are they accessing, you know, a market that we wouldn't be able to access directly? What are they bringing to this party? And that makes you think a lot about, you know, your existing routes to market. We're a long-established business, you know, 50 years, and but you are sort of thinking now, reviewing, is this a sensible route to market that we've always had? It will have its place, but there may be parallels to it where you want to talk to that consumer, and all the stuff that Francis talked about there, about engagement and continued engagement with that consumer to get that brand affinity and get them coming back for their repeat purchase, or telling their friend or their neighbour or whoever, that's a great product and that's a great customer, you know, a great supplier sent me the stuff in 48 hours, 24 hours, whatever. To get that message to people and get the endorsement is key.
Okay, we've some questions coming in, and I would advise you, or urge you, is a better way of putting it, to use the Q&A function on Zoom and post your questions. But we've one here from Matthew McCulloch from Way to Beauty, and he's asking, what processes did you employ when looking for a distribution partner, Kevin?
Well, that's something I was just touching on there has changed. You know, in the earlier days of the business, whenever before the world of e-com, I suppose, you went to a market and you found a wholesaler or a distributor who had an expertise in your market. You know, generally who's somebody who knew the customer base and could warehouse the stuff and, you know, break loads down into individual shipments and knew the customers and opened, you know, took the credit risk locally and all that sort of stuff. So that's the way the business did business, I suppose, in export. And we export to 60 countries, but that's the way we did it for decades. Find somebody with expertise in the market, in our case, the professional hair care and barbering market, know all the customers, and then they distributed the product. Now it's changing where certainly if we're entering a new market, we're immediately thinking, we sort of stack our priorities here. The preference is always to sell direct. So we're thinking, how do we sell direct in that market? Now, you can't really practically do a pick, pack and ship and send to the other side of the world, you know, to Australia, for example. You know, the consumer's going to be waiting a week for the product and they're going to get charged a lot. So in markets like that are far away, what we're doing now in terms of distributors is looking at, can you be our internet partner? And we mean by that, we're actually looking at quite an interesting model at the minute of licensing our Denman brush platform to selected partners. So we own the platform, but we have a partner in that region who will perform all of the warehousing, pick, pack and ship and distribution on the back of that. And there'll be a shared revenue stream, let's say, coming out of that. So it's quite an interesting model. We're just about to go live with one of those now, but we've about 8 different regions in the world that we're planning to set these up. So it's a very different model. You know, traditionally we would have gone in and say, found a trade wholesaler, off you go, you know, ship him a couple of pallets and see how he does. Very, very different now. We're looking at, well, what are you bringing? You know, what's your value add here? Are you accessing a market that we can't access, or can you partner with us to access our consumer market and grow our brand in your region? So it's a very different mindset, and it's changed a lot, hasn't it, over the past just 2 years, 18 months really. A very different mindset from where we were.
But the manufacturing will continue to take place in Northern Ireland.
Totally, we're absolutely committed. You know, the 80% plus of what we sell in Denman is made in Blue Drive in Bangor and shipped to 60 countries all over the world. And that's something, you know, our chairman, John Rennie's passionate about Northern Ireland manufacture and creation and sustainment of jobs in Northern Ireland. And we're continuing with that. And look, John will tell you the story that people told him repeatedly throughout the 80s, 90s that he was mad and just close it down and buy all the stuff from the Far East. And he just ignored them and carried on. And yes, it's an operating cost challenge because you're manufacturing, you know, in Western salary rates and all the rest of it, and we're on as I describe it, an island off the west coast of Europe. You know, we're you know, not exactly handy for a lot of markets, but you can compensate that by accessing your route to market correctly. And what I mean by that is back to this margin maximization. You know, if you can get the best price for your product without losing, you know, several slices of margin en route to getting into that consumer, then the issue of the cost diminishes. You know, you can suffer a bit more cost because you're getting a better price, frankly, or even a blended better price, if you know what I mean. You know, you're not going to ditch all of your traditional routes to market, because we have lots of good wholesale customers that we will never leave because they are accessing those professional markets. They're providing a great warehousing service. You know, they're going to the trade shows, they're supporting our brand, they're doing all the stuff that a good distributor and wholesaler should do, and they're solid. But we're also complementing that now with this direct-to-consumer margin maximizing route that then gives you that blend that takes the pressure off a little bit in terms of how cheaply you have to make the product.
Okay, another question here. It's from Jimmy Ray from Girona, and he's asking, I'll just put this one to Francis, the top tips in coordinating PR and marketing across the digital marketing platforms.
Know your audience. So, for example, how you speak to someone on TikTok is completely different to how you speak to someone on Facebook because of the age demographic and profile, and also for a global brand that you're pushing out globally, make sure you know your audience's cultural nuances. For example, in China, it's really all about when they purchase the unboxing experience. So if they get a product that lands in their lap and it's not beautiful to unwrap, they send it straight back. They don't even look at it or use it. So again, know what audience on your digital platform that you are talking to, and change your tone slightly. For us as well, how we speak about the brush in a professional market, we can't speak to the consumer like that, because professionals know terms, and for example, a cutting comb. What's a cutting comb to me as a consumer? So it's really my top tip for making sure your PR and marketing on all digital platforms, know what audience you're talking to, and be prepared to slightly adapt your material for each audience. Don't just think that if you write your one press release and you have that piece of marketing material, that you can just put that out everywhere, because it won't work.
Okay. Fraser Robinson from Tennant's Textile Colours asks, have you found particular success through one social or e-commerce platform over the others? Kevin?
I might defer to the expert again here.
All right,
She can probably
okay.
speak more confidently than me.
Yeah, we have. We've actually found great success with TikTok. Again, we took a strategy of it where we're not actually pushing our actual page on TikTok. And if you went and looked at it now, it would be very small, and you might think, what's she talking about? But what we have done is we have built the hashtags. There's 2 hashtags working on TikTok at the moment that have over 30 million followers each. And again, what I spoke about earlier, how we feed them, is what the strategy has been. But for TikTok, it is because it's brought that younger consumer to our brand much earlier than what we normally enjoyed. So before Denman, the brand would have been quite a slightly more mature demographic. So my age upwards knew Denman, and the grandmother had it, and it took a while. But platforms have opened up to us that have been, and TikTok has been fantastic for that. That has allowed us to speak to the younger demographic much sooner than what we enjoyed. But that's only from our brand perspective on it. So it's really important, going back to the other question, what audience are you chasing? And then look at the platforms that work best. Facebook gives a much higher return on investment in sales than Instagram does for us. So it's really, it is a test and learn, I think.
Well, that's a point I was going to make. Is it as an element of experimentation? Just try it and see if it, Yeah,
I think so.
Okay.
I'd say about the e-com side of it as well. You can't ignore Amazon. They're dominant. No matter what you do, they are dominant. And I think you just have to be careful. Pick the right route with Amazon, whether it's vendor central or seller central, and don't attempt to go. My tip, you probably endorse this, Francis. Don't attempt to go on Amazon until you're ready. Particularly all your ASIN stuff, all your product information and so on. It's quite onerous actually to get the stuff listed and manage that as well. So there's a challenge around that. But which e-com platform? There are others. We're listed in quite a number of chosen e-com partners. Not just Amazon, but Amazon are dominant. But you think about the back of my margin enhancement point as well. You ideally want to sell it on your own website because you're going to get the full price. Amazon are going to charge you. You're going to lose whatever route you go. You're going to lose a percentage on it. So ideally, if you can direct the consumer to your own website, that is the ultimate. Not always easy, because I think it's a trusted delivery. We believe is the big advantage of Amazon, and particularly if people are on Amazon Prime, they're getting free. That's hard to compete with. But yes, but there are others out there, and I wouldn't put all your eggs in the Amazon basket. I would certainly attempt to spread it out.
Okay. Another question here. Colette Wilson from Block Blinds, and she's asking Francis, coming from a traditional marketing background, how do you feel your experience stands by you in driving a global digital strategy?
From traditional marketing background, that it's given you the foundation that you understand the marketing ways, and it's no different to now people putting it on digital. So instead of buying an ad in a newspaper, a magazine, we're now putting that ad on a digital space, but all the fundamentals are still there. Key messaging, what are the quick wins, what are you trying to communicate, what are you trying to convey, how are you pulling that whole marketing strategy together and pushing it out there. So it's really only the channels that have changed rather than the digital being the dominant one now rather than the traditional.
But I suppose, I'm not sure whether Colette is asking this, but if you were hiring someone, you came from a business that made sandwiches, and so you're thinking, well, do you have the necessary skills? Is marketing a transferable skill, so that if someone was hiring, let's say, and they didn't have, there wasn't in the lineup of candidates someone that was specific to their field, would you be comfortable? Would you be comfortable in hiring someone who came from outside that sector but had good marketing skills? I mean, are these skills transferable? You would say yes, I presume.
I have to,
I'd
yeah.
agree. Yeah, I'd agree. Look, sorry, you go first.
Yeah, the skills are transferable. Anyone can learn a product, but it's how you market that product is what the experience that you bring to it.
Okay.
So that's why I would give the advice on it.
Okay. Gary Wilmot from Kilwater Minerals asks, how have you optimised distribution globally to get good service times, and how is obsolescence optimised race speed designs going out of fashion?
Yeah, that is the challenge. We were touching on that earlier. For example, it's different in different markets. For the US, we have a subsidiary there because it's our biggest export market, and we have our own subsidiary, our own warehousing through a partner and so on. So we manage all that ourselves there. In other markets where it's a pure professional market, wholesale market, that's easy. You just appoint this wholesale distributor we talked about, and they sort of break pallets out and sell the stuff on. What we're moving to now, but is this partnership with e-com pick and dispatch type partners, and that's something we're going to try and. We are doing it through different ways depending on the market, but our preference is to run it as a license arrangement with denmanbrush.com. So you find a partner who operates that pick and pack ship operation for you locally, albeit for a commission percentage, and then you operate the website yourself.
Are there any well-known names that would be?
A variety. No, you can go sort of 3PL. You could, there are
3PL.
Third-party logistics. You could go to like a third-party logistics company and do that, but we're not actually. We're generally partnering actually in most cases with existing wholesale distributors, and some of whom we're actually explaining and training how to set up a pick, pack and ship operation and how to move their business from traditional wholesaling to be a consumer distribution business, because that's our preference. Like, we have a relationship with most of these wholesalers going back, in some cases, 30 or 40 years, and our strong preference is that we stay with them and they become our partner in terms of this, digital journey. And a few of them have responded to that really well. And initially, the first reaction was, "Whoa, you want us to go from wholesale to consumer?" But once they've actually seen the benefits of it, because look, there's an additional margin that can be shared, and they get that, and we're doing that, so we're saying, here's the higher price point when you sell to the consumer. Let's see what way we can split that, and we've got our commercial arrangements with those people to do that.
Okay, I have a question. I'm not sure whether it's an add-on from Gary or from someone else, but what's your biggest business opportunity and challenge that you can see in 2021? COVID? I don't know whether you call that a business challenge or, but
of course, we're running the business through very strict controls, obviously, which is a real challenge in a manufacturing operation. We did remain open right the way through, which was very difficult at times, particularly the first lockdown and post-Christmas period there in 2021. So that's been very, very challenging, just running a manufacturing business through that. But we all can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think things are only going to get better, particularly here in the UK and Northern Ireland in particular. And then Brexit has thrown its challenges as well, of course. You can't have any discussion really about throwing Brexit in, but we're overcoming those issues as well. Really, it's suppose for us, it's managing the growth is part of the challenge as well, adding the right resource to the team, scaling up operations, finding the right partners, all that sort of thing is suppose the challenge of managing what, continuing on the growth trajectory we've been on over the past year or so and keeping that going.
Francis, do you want to add anything on the business opportunity of 2021?
Our biggest opportunity is being able to open ourselves up to the consumer market and worldwide. There's so many countries that we still haven't even knocked on the door of. We are in the professional market, but we haven't even started to speak to the consumer, and it's just the demands on the time and how do you do that and how you prioritize it. But there's so much to go after, and we're very lucky. It's such a great product and a great brand. We have so many more people that we need to talk to and want to talk to and are looking forward to getting a brush in their hands.
Kevin, there's this getting topical. The UK government has announced that it's launching an international trade and investment hub in Belfast. How useful do you think that could be to exporters?
Yeah, welcome. Look, we've been partnering with Invest Northern Ireland and Chamber of Commerce and other people for years, particularly in sort of market research and so on. I have that hub down there has been very useful. So yeah, look, very welcome, absolutely, if they can bring a bit more to that. But I have to say, we've been very happy with the support we've got over the years from I&I on trade missions and all sorts of things. But if that can be complemented with whatever else is coming in, then great.
Yeah, I mean, if you have someone coming to you, do they really have to understand your business? If you're going, let's say you're going to this hub, do they have to understand the business before they can offer you something that's useful to you? I mean, or are there in that sense principles that they can, or information that they might have that you wouldn't otherwise have? Is that likely? I'm just wondering whether you don't know to the extent to which this will actually prove useful. So really, I mean, if you don't think it's going to be terribly helpful, please. Well, please offer your opinion.
Yeah, hopefully, we've used DIT and I&I and various government bodies in the past to do in-market research. In fact, we commissioned some research in the China market a few years ago, and then we complemented that with a third-party consultant as well who did a super job for us. But yeah, if you're going to break into a new market, you got to figure out who's there. Who are the players in the market? What do they know? Back to my point earlier about we got to evaluate what they're really going to add, as well in terms of your route to market. But yeah, that's really, I suppose, where they'll perform or bring the most value for exporters in doing on the ground research in the market in your particular sector to figure out who is there of value to you in terms of your supply chain.
Okay, Francis. We've talked about these online reviews, but one presumes that to some extent they're particular to a region. So how do you keep check of what people are saying about Denman in different countries and different regions of the world?
We employ an awful lot of apps on the back end of our system that actually pull them out for us. We monitor the hashtags and the mentions and the apps that people are using throughout the world. And our customer services manager, we make a joke that he's half bot now. He's got so many systems in place. And then taking that data back and how we use it and manage it going forward. So for example, he's brought to light that we say the word hairbrush as one word because that's how it's grammatically you should use it, but actually people, the search and what people are actually tagging us in, they say hair and brush. So for your organic searches and your SEO and terms that you need to use to put into Amazon to make sure that you're relevant where you're at the top of the list, we should actually be saying hair and brush. It's nuances like that, but yeah, it's definitely it's a system that is analysed and it's fed on a weekly basis that it's looked at. But there's tags as well that we put against things when we're searching for global references. It becomes a little bit more tricky when it's Asian languages and things like that, but that's when we use our trusted partners to help us.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, if you're responding to someone who is, has bought something from Tajikistan, not quite sure where it is, but it's very far away. And I mean, how do you, and then you're not even sure whether they're happy or they're unhappy. How do you respond to that?
Well, we're growing that. We said earlier, we don't really have a 24/7 global customer services operation. We're very conscious about that. And part of what we're putting in place with these partners we're talking about in these various markets is a service level agreement, where part of it is they have to operate a customer service, function with language, obviously, in that region. So that's a key part of it. And we're going to put metrics around that as well, as to you must reply within, so many hours or whatever from a customer service inquiry. And then the beauty of it is because it's a partnership where we own the platform effectively, we'll see all of that. So as Francis says, it's a sort of full circle in my mind. If you're getting this information back from consumers, for example, if consumers are constantly asking what brush is best for X, then obviously we're not putting the message out properly in our marketing to say what the best brush for X is, So that's what Francis is looking at. Francis, along with the customer service team, looking at that, going, right, let's change our messaging, let's get that out there.
Right, a question here from Peter Davis from Deloitte, and he's asking, it seems social media and marketing platforms change rapidly. Do you have any tips on how to monitor changes to these marketing platforms and the latest trends, Francis?
So go back to the TikTok example again. We're actually just about to launch advertising on TikTok, but this is so new that we don't really know what the metrics are to measure key to success. So it's a difficult conversation to have with your boss when you go in and say, I want to spend some money, but I'm not really sure what the return is going to be on it. But again, going back to that, it's going to add value in a way, but it really, again, I would say trusted partners that are out there that are at the forefront of it that you can go and seek advice from, because trying to keep up to date with it yourself is really difficult unless you have the time to put someone that's on that. But it's really, an awful lot of it is test and see, and we're going out with a small budget to see what comes back, and then we adapt and change every time.
It's bizarre, you know, for the first time in my career, I'm saying to the marketing team, would you not like to spend more, you know? And honestly, because, you know, you put X £1,000 into, you know, some advertising campaign, and we see the response, and we go, well, we'll go again. But then we do try different things, you know, we're trying lots of different channels, you know, as Francis has described there. But, and I say that the advantage for me is it's much more real time, you know, because marketing was always very blind, as we talked about, you know, sort of, we think it's working, you know, but now you can watch those dashboards and actually see, does it work to an extent?
Managing supply chains has become more important over the past number of years. Do you have any tips on how SMEs can manage this better?
Yeah, get a really good procurement manager. That's what I did, particularly with the Brexit challenges and so on. We have a guy there, well, him and his team are just fantastic, you know, and good systems actually as well. We run a fairly sophisticated new ERP system that predicts demand, you know, so we're constantly inputting, like literally constantly inputting forecasts from our own forecast for Denman, but from our other customers as well. And it obviously, it runs what ERP systems do, you know, it calculates your requirements right out. And if it wasn't for that, we just couldn't do it, because the Denroy business in particular is very complex. There's thousands of products, you know, and they all have various components. There's just no way you can do it in a spreadsheet, you know. The software has to manage all that for you. So really good ERP system, whichever one you choose, there's lots of them out there, and have a really good procurement team that know what they're doing. You know, it's simple business.
Yeah, and work as a team as well.
Yeah.
Don't be putting pressure on your supply chain to ask them to provide something that you 100% actually have to push that. For example, we know the materials for a certain brush are harder to get than other materials, or there's a longer lead time. So we don't go out and market that certain brush if the lead time, if it's still at sea, the materials or whatever. So I think working as a team to make sure that you're backing your supply chain up, and again, they come and communicate to you as well. Look, can you help me out here or there? And we can dial up, you know, let's push this that we have an awful lot of stock of that's coming, and then we'll tone this down. So I think it's working as the team.
I'm fascinated because it's you can't miss these pictures of this huge ship sitting in the Suez Canal. But not just it. Well, it has been. I don't know whether it's moved today, but all those other vessels that are backed up behind it in both directions. Is that actually impacting, you know, yet on your operation?
Touch wood if there's any here. I haven't heard yet, but probably, Jimmy, you know, it's probably going to have an impact. I heard the statistic this morning, hundreds of ships backed up. Yeah, look, and COVID has had an issue on supply of certain commodities, particularly anybody who's in the plastics industry will know this, that there's a shortage, actually, would you believe it, of key polymers in the world at the minute. You know, nylon in particular, very, very hard to get. There's been force majeure letters issued by some of the suppliers and so on. So we think it's probably, don't think it's Brexit related, I think it's more sort of COVID and whatever issues. But yeah, look, there are challenges out there, and we do have to react to them. And as Francis says, we do change. We can control. It's good on Denman. We can control that. You can't do that with our Denroy industrial customers. They need what they need, you know. But at least with Denman, we have some control, and if we do have a material shortage, at least we can focus on marketing something else.
Briefly, and because I suspect that this is not a huge issue for you as a company because you're not involved in those more sensitive areas, but is Brexit having a serious impact on the business?
Not compared to the agri-food world, you know, who are having a nightmare, you know. And I'm in contact with some of the guys in that industry, and they're having a horror show in terms of these veterinary certificates and stuff. Generally, no. In the protocol, you know, not get into the politics of it, but generally it's working reasonably well for us. You know, we'd like some simplification around supplementary declarations and other issues which are just, you know, administrative costs. It's just bureaucracy. We're going to have to employ people, frankly, to do the additional administration associated with it. But it's not the end of the world. Our products are flowing, and we're in a very fortunate place compared to, say, to the agri-food world, who are just having a nightmare. And you know, I'm hearing all about it from the guys. But no, generally it's fine. We're trading away okay.
Great, good. Look, I think it's been a really educational discussion, but unfortunately, at this point, I have to draw it to a close. So, thank you once again to Kevin and Francis for taking the time to share with us the hugely impressive story of Denman. It's a tale of exceptional international growth, and I'm sure, as I said, you've learned a lot like me. Thanks again to Julie and the team at Danske Bank for your ongoing support. And of course, thank you to Power NI, the SME partner, for Learn, Grow, Excel. On behalf of the Chamber, I want to offer our appreciation to you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend this virtual event. Before you log off, please complete the feedback survey, which can be found in Zoom. We always encourage our members to help us to help others, and your opinion and feedback enables us to do just that. The next Grow Internationally event with Danske Bank will take place on Thursday, the 13th of May, and the company focus will be the Camlin Group. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you very much, and goodbye.